Most people are completely wrong about why dogs lick, even though it's one of the most common things they do. We've repeated the same story for years, never questioning whether it actually makes sense from the dog's point of view. When you step back and watch the behavior without the usual assumptions, it starts to look less like affection and more like communication. And that communication can reveal emotions we rarely talk about. By the end of this, you'll see that lick in a way you've probably never seen it before. If that kind of honest, curious look into dog behavior feels good to you, I'd love to have you stick around. Chapter 1. What dog licking really means. Why does a lick from your dog feel so simple on the surface, yet oddly loaded once you start paying attention to it? When you let yourself slow down in that moment, you can sense there's more happening than a cute habit you've grown used to. Your dog isn't just touching you with their tongue, they're expressing a mix of bonding and gentle submission in a language they've spoken since the day they were born. And in that same gesture, they're also gathering pieces of information about you through taste and scent in a way that feels almost investigative. What makes it even more complicated is that a dog's mouth carries its own world of bacteria, and the idea that it's somehow cleaner than yours has never really been true. But the part that matters most is how this behavior shifts when your dog starts licking too often. Because that's when affection can quietly turn into stress or anxiety that deserves your attention. Chapter 2. The myth of the guilty look. And that shift into stress is exactly why so many people mistake another behavior entirely. The truth is that the expression you call a guilty look has nothing to do with guilt at all, no matter how convincing it seems. Your dog isn't replaying what they did or feeling bad about it. They're watching you, reading your posture, sensing the tension in your voice, and responding in the only way they know to keep the peace. That lowered head and those soft, darting eyes are quiet submission signals meant to calm the moment, not confess to anything. And once you see that, it becomes clear that your dog is reacting to the emotion in front of them, not the action behind them. Which also means the most reliable way to stop the cycle is by shaping the environment so the situation never builds to that moment in the first place. Chapter 3. How dogs actually see color. You toss a bright red toy across the yard, and your dog charges after it as if they can see it perfectly. But the truth is, they can't see it the way you do at all. What feels obvious to your eyes becomes muted and uncertain through theirs, almost like the world has been softened into fewer shades. Your dog lives in a palette built around blues and yellows, and anything drifting toward red or green blends into the background in a way that makes more sense once you picture the grass swallowing those colors whole. That's why you'll sometimes watch them pause, sniff the ground, lift their head, and search with their nose instead of their vision, relying more on movement and brightness than on the color of the object itself. And when you realize this, it changes the way you interpret those little hesitations, those moments where they seem confused or distracted. It's not stubbornness or lack of focus, it's simply the world appearing different to them than it does to you. Chapter 4. The reality behind dog aging. And honestly, that's the manageable kind of misunderstanding compared to how confused we get about a dog's age. The truth is, your dog grows older in a rhythm that doesn't match any simple chart. And saying they age 7 years at a time flattens a life that's far more complex. Their first 2 years move fast, almost like they're rushing through childhood and adolescence in a single breath, while the years that follow stretch out in a gentler, steadier way. You can feel it when you look at different dogs, too. The smaller ones seeming to hold on to their youth a little longer, the larger ones carrying their age more quickly in their bones and their breath. And once you see how size and development shape the pace of their life, the old rule starts to feel more like a comforting myth than a meaningful guide. But the real clarity comes when you stop trying to fit your dog into a number and start noticing how their body and spirit shift in their own quiet, individual way. Chapter 5. Why dogs eat grass. Eating grass isn't a sign that something is wrong with your dog, even though people whisper it like a warning. When you watch your dog nibble at a patch of green, it often looks dramatic enough to make you think it means illness or some hidden discomfort. But most of the time, it's far simpler than that. Your dog might be bored, curious, or just drawn to the taste and texture the way we sometimes crave the oddest snacks. What slips past us is that the real danger isn't the grass itself, but the invisible things that cling to it, the chemicals or parasites that turn a harmless habit into something you actually need to keep an eye on. And when the grazing becomes frequent or frantic, that's when it quietly shifts into a clue that your dog might be missing something nutritionally or emotionally. So you start watching the pattern, noticing the pacing, the timing, the mood, and suddenly the behavior becomes less mysterious and more like a conversation your dog has been trying to start for a while. Chapter 6. The Dry Nose Misconception. A dog's dry nose feels like a warning at first, but the truth behind it is much softer than the worry it creates. When you touch your dog's nose and find it warm or a little rough, your mind jumps to illness because that's the story most people quietly carry. But a dog's nose shifts throughout the day for reasons as ordinary as waking up from a nap, lying too close to a heater, or simply existing in air that's a little drier than usual. And none of those moments say anything about their overall health. What actually matters is the way your dog moves, the spark in their eyes, the small choices they make when they feel good versus when something is off. And once you start paying attention to those deeper signals, the moisture on their nose becomes just one tiny detail in a much bigger picture. It's comforting in a way, realizing you don't have to panic over every change because your dog communicates their well-being far more clearly through their daily rhythms than through the surface of their nose. Chapter 7. The tired dog is a happy dog. Oversimplification. It's easy to believe that wearing your dog out is the same as making them happy, but that idea quietly misses the heart of what they really need. You can run them for miles, throw the ball until your arm aches, and still see that flicker of restlessness in their eyes when the excitement fades. That's because physical exhaustion doesn't touch the deeper parts of a dog's mind, the parts that crave problem-solving, connection, and a sense of purpose that simple movement can't give. And the more you rely on exercise alone, the more your dog adapts, building stamina instead of satisfaction, and pushing you into a cycle where more feels like the only option. What changes everything is noticing how a few moments of mental work, sniffing, searching, thinking, can soften your dog's whole body in a way a long run rarely does. You start to realize it's not about tiring them out, but about reaching that quiet place where their mind feels settled and understood. Chapter 8. Training older dogs. Older dogs aren't stuck in their ways the way people like to claim. When you look at a senior dog with that calm, steady gaze, you can almost feel how much life has taught them. And that experience becomes its own kind of focus. They're not battling the same wild impulses puppies have, so their minds settle faster, listen longer, and absorb new skills with a quiet determination that surprises anyone who gives them the chance. And something beautiful happens when you teach them, because the work doesn't just shape behavior, it keeps their brain alive, nudging their curiosity, sharpening their awareness, and giving them a purpose they can feel. You start to notice how eager they are to participate, how their tail softens into a gentle wag when they understand something new, and how capable they remain even as their body slows down. It makes you realize that the idea of an old dog who can't learn isn't a truth at all, just a limitation people repeat without ever looking into the eyes of a dog who's still trying. By now, you can almost feel your dog's perspective settling into place, like puzzle pieces that finally make sense. And the way you've been trying to meet them halfway, even in the moments of confusion, is something your dog has felt far more deeply than you realize. The real takeaway is that your dog hasn't just been living beside you. They've been communicating with you, trusting you, choosing you. You may start paying attention to those quiet choices with a little more softness now, letting them mean what they've always meant. And with that softness comes a new question that almost asks itself, why you? What makes you the person they curl against, follow around, or look to when they feel unsure? If you're curious about the answer your dog already holds, I'd love to explore it with you next.